Greetings Internet, Didier here, and welcome to another Dragon Ball Z RNG deck profile video. This one is special in that it is special to my heart, Majin Vegeta Red Ruthless. This is the exact list that I won the two back-to-back tournaments with, both winning the Slobberknocker tournament and as well winning the online WMAT 4 tournament run by Chris Kretzman. It is my opinion that this deck is currently the best deck in the format. It is unbelievably strong, super heavy aggro, anger, and leveling. Whenever I play it, I feel the true strength of Vegeta boosted with Majin power, as well as I feel the tactical nature of Vegeta comes out in his power set. It's super fun to play. I highly recommend it. So without further ado, let's get into the list. So let's just scan over the list real quick. So as you'll see, this deck is built heavy physical aggro. It runs a lot of blocks because its only real goal is to get in combat, stay in combat, and push up to the upper levels and outpace and out-advantage the opponent with its leveling ability. Truly not that many setups. We only run 3. And not that many events either. It really just goes for the physical aggro and damage and taking advantage of Majin Vegeta's upper levels. So now let's talk about the attacks. So these are the attacks that we're working with. See, we have a ton of physical attacks, 31 physical attacks to be exact, and we only play 3 energies. But the 3 energy attacks that we play are just needed in Majin Vegeta. You'll notice that there's no Gallic Gun in here. I actually did try out Gallic Gun for a while in this build, but I noticed that the stage cost was just too much in certain matchups. I always wanted to be high on my power chart because Majin Vegeta tends to drop off pretty quickly, you know, in power level. The top 3 stages or 4 stages are often his strongest levels. So I didn't want to pay those 2 stages just to have my attack be blocked and not push any value for me. Although I wouldn't knock anyone for playing it because it does have a nice combo with the level 4. But the main reason why Final Flash is just needed, 100%, would never, ever, ever run Majin Vegeta without Final Flash. Multiple reasons. One, I know it shuts off your mastery, the Ruthless Mastery, but the point, and that's okay that it shuts off the mastery. The point that this mastery is giving you is the +2 stages and anti-anger on your physicals. The revealing and placing to the bottom and doing the attack from the top, very strong, don't get me wrong, but the point is you're training card for card there. It's actually not generating you any advantage. You're just getting cycling and hand filtering. So it's okay for you to give that up in order to shut off a more prominent, stronger mastery like Mischievous or Combative or other masteries like that. Not only that, shutting off masteries are very important, but it also shuts down general strategies, such as Supreme Kai wanting to end combat, Ball decks doing control, Namekian decks having their crazy events in hand and things like that. Stare down confrontation, of course, and other Unleashed builds, because especially if you enter against another Unleashed build, open Final Flash, they have Unleashed, they're going to be sad about that. There was actually a game where I remember I entered back-to-back combats with Final Flash against an Unleashed deck, and they had Unleashed in their hand the whole time. It's just there are so many cards that this card shuts off. But even further than that, kind of the nail in the coffin on this one, why I would never not run this card in Majin Vegeta, is because of the combos. This guy actually has 2 really great combos with Final Flash. So not only is it a 2-anger card, but it's always going to push you up. But if you're the level 2 and you de-level to 1 with Final Flash's hit effect, pretty much always you're going to get this to hit because it can only be stopped by energy combat cards. So there's just so much in the game that's not going to stop it. So if you're on the level 2, which you typically are because your level 1 gives you anger, but if you're on the level 2, you hit this, you bump down to level 2, then automatically bump down to level 1, automatically bump up to level 2, you basically get a free random discard. It's really, really great. I've done it several times. It's awesome. Love it. But even further than that, there are several times, not many, but several, where you'll be on the level 4 and they'll be counterplaying you a lot. And you'll almost want to just go back to the level 3. It happens a lot because the level 3 generates you a lot of card advantage. It kills 2 cards on the board and it gets you that card draw. It also has great targeted banish. So often I would find myself on the level 4 wishing I could go back down to the level 3. And certainly we played Resourceful Block and Unleash for that. But another card that's going to do that for us is this Final Flash. And you'll even get a random discard out of it, which is great. So moving on here, you got I'll Dig Your Grave. I put this next in the list because it's just so important for this deck. It's so important to be able to push out damage past prevention and endurance. But also, it's very good for leveling. And I will use this quite often for leveling. I used it in my Conflict Vegeta builds for leveling, and I think it fits perfectly in here. It's a physical attack. You have to be careful with how many non-style cards you're running in this deck because of Vegeta's level 3 and Vegeta's level 2 as well. They both have effects that only activate if you have no non-style cards in your discard pile or specific non-style cards in your discard pile. But so basically the non-style cards that you play are premium. The ones that you play have to have huge impact. We just kind of went over one, and this one I would consider another one. Just because it levels you and it'll just win some matchups that stack heavy endurance and think that they're going to last longer in combats because they have all this extra endurance. They play 60 endurance. I don't need to run blocks with 60 endurance. Well, you're wrong. Concussive Strike. This card is so amazing. So amazing. I love it, love it, love it. I've won several games with this card just because of the 2 Rejuve will keep me alive. And we'll go over later about a combo specifically with this card. But I think there's some question over whether or not you want to target your opponent or target yourself with the banishment. To be honest with you, I think there was only one time I ever targeted my opponent with this banish. 9.5 times out of 10, I am targeting myself with this banish for multiple reasons. So it says choose a player. That player banishes 2, rejuvenate 2. So the reason I choose myself is because my opponent is choosing the 2. So obviously they're going to choose the worst 2 cards in their discard pile to banish. So what I do is instead, since that's pretty much going to give me no advantage, they're just going to choose 2 cards they don't care about. They're not going to hurt themselves. In fact, they may even help themselves if they have a draw on the bottom of their discard pile effect or they have some way to use the top of their discard pile. It could actually help them. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to help my opponent. I want to help me. So I'm going to choose myself, and I'm either going to set up my Mastery. Because this banishes after use, you can set up your Mastery with it. You can also set up its own Rejuve. So you can actually set up the Mastery with the top, 5 cards? If any of the top 5 cards are an attack that you want to perform, you can set that up. Pretty awesome. And likewise, you can set up the Rejuve. And also, we just went over how Majin Vegeta doesn't like non-style cards in his discard pile. Well, you can get rid of those non-style cards with this card. You can also set up the 3 draw on the bottom. I've done that several times as well with this. There's just so many combos that you can do with this card. I just never choose my opponent. Very, very strong card. Great anti-anger card. It's a dev blow. It's better dev blow for any Majin personality. Super, super strong. Double Strike is pretty much self-explanatory. Super strong in this deck because it has you have the modifiers on 2 and 3. So you got those modifiers making Double Strike that much stronger. I've killed people with Double Strike, solely. Needs no explanation. Heel Kick, again, needs no explanation. We're a red aggro deck, so obviously we're going to be running Heel Kick. And Tandem Attack is in here mainly because of the meta. Because, Black's just running so rampant in the meta. And there's nothing quite like, your opponent random discarding you and you discarding the Tandem Attack, you drawing a card. Sure, they get the mill on you. That's fine. I'm going to have 5 attacks in my hand to kill you in this combat, so I don't really care about the extra mill that's being done to me. This card is pretty much probably my favorite Ruthless card. It's gotten to that point. It's weaseled its way into a lot of my lists for several reasons, and here is no exception. It's just so great when you get the combos with the top banishment when entering combat with your Ruthless Mastery. You can also set this up if it's at the top of your discard pile and you activate your 3 or 2 power. You can get anger from that as well, which just makes it even that much better. But even further, the main part of it is search your discard pile for an attack card and place it at the top of your discard pile. So I said earlier that there are other combos you can do. I've actually won games where I had no cards left in my life deck, and I collisioned a Concussive Strike to the top of my discard pile to use with Mastery to place just enough cards in my life deck to survive the next turn and win. It just allows you to play 2 ofs in the deck. So, for example, Forceful Strike, we only run 2 of it. And in certain matchups that you would need that extra board control, it's really valuable to do that. Or a Shoulder Grab. If you want those extra crits, Collision can help enable that. There are many situations. It just helps with your consistency with the deck and with the Mastery use. And it also helps with anger gain as well. So I knew it fit perfectly in the deck. It's just a great add. Never go lower than 3 in this specific build. 3 red sword stabs, quintessential red beatdown card. 4 damage, raise 1 anger, 3 endurance, can't go wrong. A lot of endurance there. Furious Lunge is great. Again, another AT plus 4, so this is going to hit like a truck. I forget that this has this effect, the cannot be stopped by a non-style card. It kind of helps sometimes with, say, Chi-Chi Ally. Chi-Chi Ally, that's a good example of how this card helps you. But other than that, there's not many on the move, I guess. Sometimes if that card never falls out of flavor like it should. But yeah, the main reason this card is in here is Endurance 2, hit 2 anger. It's great, it's great to combo with the level 1, i.e., you'll do the level 1 power, throw another physical attack. They'll stop that one because it has hit 2 anger, then you'll throw this one that also has hit 2 anger, so it will likely hit. So great card, just a solid bread and butter card. We kind of went over Forceful Strike already. This is great in certain matchups. I didn't have these in originally, but then I realized with the meta the way it was, I needed to run a little bit more board control. Board control decks were running rampant. So I wanted a little bit extra in here, but I can see in certain metas that you drop down to either 1 or maybe even no copies of that in certain metas because your level 3 does give you the board control and you can kind of bank on that. So I only play the 2 in here just because of the current meta. We have Stomach Dive as well, and something I didn't go over. Another combo with Collision is with this card, Stomach Dive. This is our Unleashed fodder right here. It's actually a pretty good effect that you can make your attacks do extra damage, and I found that I'll get myself extra crits or I'll seal out games inside of a dig combat with this card. But even further than that, I've found a lot. I explained earlier that there are some matchups where you just don't want to leave level 3. And I have used this card to stay on level 3 for much, much longer than I would have normally. And I've actually won some games because not only are you getting the extra damage from the red Stomach Dive, but you're also getting the extra damage from the +2 modifier that you would lose if you would level. So it's actually kind of an extra 4, 6, 8 damage that I can push out in certain combats if the stars align. And I've done it several times. It sounds like it would never happen, but I've done it a few times. So, and then, of course, another combo with Collision is to place Stomach Dive on top of your discard pile. You have Unleashed in hand. Maybe you ran out of your other attached cards. Maybe there's none left in your deck. Well, you activate Mastery, throw the Stomach Dive on you, and then you're able to Unleash then. Another good combos. And the final attack we play in the deck is Red Shoulder Grab. This card almost needs no explanation in this specific build because pretty much every stack level either attacks or enables an attack. So you have an attack, drawing a card, so it's going to be an attack usually, and then an attack, so, well, that always crits. But, so the Shoulder Grab is in there because allies are not a particularly good matchup for this deck. Yes, we do have Prideful, but Yajirobe is always looming in the background. So a good control ally deck will be able to take us over. Well, not with Shoulder Grab, not with us able to just crit every single one of their allies away. If we can't get to the level 3 and clear their board of allies that way, we have Shoulder Grab to fall back on. So that's it for the attacks. So now let's go over the events and blocks. These are the events and blocks that we have in the deck. Very tight here on events and blocks. Time is a Warrior's Tool is obvious. This is an Unleashed build. We run 3 Unleashed. And if you listen to my my recent podcast with Shane, TTU2, where we talked about win cons and we kind of went over why, in my opinion, we play Unleashed, why I play Unleashed in this build. Mainly because not only do you always want to get up to the upper levels of Majin Vegeta, but as I went over in the podcast, is I would consider this MP a toolbox MP, in that it has very specific levels that are good in specific situations and specific matchups. So you kind of want to pick and choose what level you're going to be on. For example, the level 2 will shut down certain matchups completely. Oppressive Mastery, can't skip. Ascension Mastery, can't skip. And then the black control decks that end combat with 6 to 8 combat enders, those will be shut down as well by this card. And then likewise, the board control of 3 is massive, but if you're not playing a board control deck, then it's just simply draw a card, which may not be as strong as some other level 3s in the world. And then, of course, there are some control matchups where you simply cannot hit the level 4 power. It won't happen. So because of all those, I feel like Unleashed is just the perfect thing for Majin Vegeta. That, and he doesn't gain too much anger. He does gain good anger, decent anger on the level 1, good anger on the level 2, and the level 3 draw. So obviously that anger. So in my opinion, you can push MPVV with him. You definitely can. But I feel that Unleashed is just better. So going along with Red Inferno here, that's Unleashed fodder that we have. Mainly Inferno is in here because it just fits so well. You know, crit effects fit so well with an aggro deck. You're going to want to kill those allies. Again, allies are somewhat of a weak matchup for this deck. And then Dragon Balls as well. It's really great to just have a Dragon Ball deck, stare at Red Inferno on the board, and just know that you can always steal one of their Dragon Balls, especially Dragon Ball 6. We only run 2 stare downs and no spheres. 2 stare downs. Again, I talked earlier about how premium non-style cards are in this deck. The non-style cards that we run are very, very limited. We only run the bare minimum. And given that we have Final Flash and we play a single copy of Red Restriction, I didn't want to run 3. I knew Stare Down was needed because you can't not run Stare Down in an aggro deck. It's just too good, especially when you talk about the level 4 with taking out that energy block and being able to hit the level 4. It's just too good, so I knew I needed to run it, and I would definitely run it over Sphere, because Sphere is a dead card sometimes. Stare Down will never hurt you having it in your hand, even if you have to hold it until next combat. It's just so amazing. But the 2 copies, basically I traded 1 copy of Stare Down for 1 copy of Red Restriction, just because I wanted the extra attacker pass effect. I felt like this deck was really suited for it and really built to take advantage of that effect. And so that's why ultimately, to reduce my non-style count, I dropped down to 2 stare downs. Although, again, I would never knock anyone for running 3, certainly. Sphere, again, in here, I wouldn't run. It's good to hold for Unleashed, certainly, to protect your Unleashed. But, again, it can be a dead card. So this is an aggro deck, and I don't like dead cards in my hand. So the single copy of Red Restriction is just beautiful. It's won me several games. Honestly, I don't really like running 3 of it, because often you will restriction into restriction and then you just feel bad because you want to use it again just to hand cycle, but just so you don't have the dead card in your hand. It feels bad when you do that. So I ran the single copy in here just for that extra attacker pass effect. Being that Final Flash is definitely superior, so I didn't feel like I had to run multiple restrictions. Observation, such a good card. Observation has won me so many games, so many games. And when, you know, the combative decks were running rampant in the meta, and I would always talk about Observation, people would always tell me, well, Didier, it's only one card in your deck. How do you see it, etc., etc.? Well, the way that you see it, how you see it, is right here. We got Majin Vegeta level 3. Targeted banish on your discard pile. Set up the bottom of your discard pile to draw Red Observation. I've done it several times. Not just once, not just twice. Multiple times. And even add in Red Disregard, which we'll talk about now. I mean, this card's self-explanatory. Clears the board. It's just amazing. We don't play board cards. We only run 3 plannings, so it's not going to hurt us whatsoever. So, Disregard. And when I talk about blocks in this deck, the block lineup of this deck was so difficult to do because we got a lot of blocks. What is this? 12, 13, 14 blocks in this deck. A lot of blocks, okay? And that, of course, we can get away with that because of the Red Ruthless Mastery being able to cycle and trade one of those blocks for an attack. It happens a lot, and it's great. So you can run a little bit higher block count because in the matchups that, you know, especially end game when a single action can lose you the game, those extra blocks will help a lot. But so it's very difficult because these 3 right here, I would never lower them. I would never lower their count. I've seen a lot of Majin Vegeta builds only run 2 disregards. Would never do that. Always would run 3 disregards because not only is it going to help you, you know, the Banish 10 will help you set up your 2 and your 3 for not only drawing, but also enabling, you know, removing all those non-style cards and getting them to only be style cards. But also, the level 2 can actually generate you 3 anger in a single activation by banishing 2 of your own disregards. You can banish disregard for your mastery to gain anger that way. Also, the level 3, again, targeted banish, you can combo anger. This gives you an anger combo, which is why I would never take it out. It's just too good. Your opponent is not going to be expecting you to gain 3 anger on a single action. And if you do that with Red Disregard and level, you can end the game that way. It's just too good. So 3 disregards, never going down. Resourceful Block, again, this is another combo card. I love how many combos are in this deck. The combo, of course, being your level 2, you de-level down to level 1. You bump up with his parenthetical, discarding a card, going back to level 2. Now that you're on level 2, at the end of combat, the Resourceful Block will trigger, and then you'll go to level 3, essentially giving you a free level. This card has Endurance 3, so it's pretty much never hurting you. There are some instances where I'll be on level 3 and I'll not want to de-level to 2. There will be several instances where that happens. But being that the level 4 sends you to level 2, more often than not, level 2 is going to be the level that you're on, which is why I ultimately decided to play 3 of these, because I bounced it between 2 and 3 copies a lot, but 3 was the number I settled on because of that interaction going to level 2 from the level 4. And then likewise, we went over again, there are instances where you're on 4 and you want to bump down to 3. Well, here you go, right here. That's another way you can do it. And Red Escape, similarly to Resourceful Block, is just amazing. Escape, just similar to how Resourceful Block will get you a free level if you're on 2, Escape will give you a free level if you're on 1. Because you'll bump up to level 2, stay at level 2 for the rest of the combat, and then at the end of combat, you activate Escape's ability to go down, and then bumping you back up to level 2 with the parentheticals. So, yep, so you'll get a free level there from Escape, super good. Escape pretty much always helps you. There are very seldomly are you stuck on level 4. Usually you're either stuck on level 2 or level 1, and that's why Escape is so good. Yeah, if you're on level 3 and you manage to escape up to 4, that's just money. Because not only is it getting you a free level, it's getting you that 11 life card attack, and then you're just going back to level 2 then. And it's almost like nothing ever happened. It's just getting you so much free advantage and levels, so good. Blocking hand, I mean, and this is where we get, like, if I would drop a block, it would have to be blocking hand, because these blocks are just too combo-tastic with this deck. And I'm certainly not dropping blocking hand, so we got 3 blocking hands, of course. We have a single copy of Brace in here, just because I wanted to run 4 energy blocks versus only running 3. And Brace is very solid. You know, it has endurance. It goes back into your deck when you use it. Yeah, so just very solid. And just because I wanted to have a little bit more energy blocks in there. All right, so that's it for the events and blocks. And now let's go over the planning cards. So these are the planning cards that we play in the deck. Only 3 planning. That is it. Of course, VTP is no longer in the meta. No longer, it is banned. So if I could play VTP in this deck, I would, but I can't. So obviously we have a low planning count. 3 Prideful Challenge. Amazing. Shuts down certain matchups, draws you a card, gets you that target advantage to activate your disregards or set up your mastery. I've set up my mastery a lot with this. I love, like, there will be some turns where I'll have a non-style card at the top of my discard pile. I won't be able to activate Mastery, and then I'll draw Prideful, and I'll just thank the stars, because then that means I can go aggressive. More often than not, when I draw Prideful, I will just enter. I'm not going to pass to try to generate the full advantage of card advantage. I'm going to want to keep momentum and keep entering combat, typically. There are some matchups where I'll do that depending on the board state, but usually I'll just drop it, enter, and activate it immediately. So that's it for the list, everyone. And just to kind of go over a very, very brief just strategy here. I mean, this is an aggro deck, so obviously you're going to be entering combat a lot. I almost enter combat. They're very seldom where I pass with this deck. You certainly want to pass sometimes if you don't have the hands to support leveling, and that's the main goal. The main goal, of course, being you want to at least gain 1 level per combat. So if you don't have a hand that supports that, you might not want to enter unless you like have a strong momentum against your opponent, like they're knocked at 0, they have no board, or you're facing a specific deck where you know that they're going to draw into those planning cards and set themselves off, and you don't want to give them time to set up. So there are definitely instances where you'll enter on bad hands, but generally you want to make sure you have a level of hand. And then other than that, just the combos, like we kind of went over them, jumping up and down between 3 and 4, jumping between 4 and 2. 9 times out of 10, you're always going to activate the parenthetical here to level to 2. There are some instances where I won't, just because I want to threat the extra crit. I will do that in certain matchups, like if I'm facing a heavy ball deck and they have 4 or 5 balls in play, or a heavy ally deck, and I just want to threaten the extra crit effect, I will stay on level 1 in certain matchups. This deck is super fun, and it really thematically captures Vegeta. Just the targeted banishment is something I personally fell in love with this personality. The targeted banishment rewards smart play so much, because not only can you set up your own effects with the targeted banishment with Ruthless Mastery or with the drawing from the bottom, etc., but also it can hurt your opponent. So knowing when to go for yourself for the targeted banishment, knowing when to go against your opponent, all of that rewards smart play, and I just love when a Vegeta stack rewards smart play. It goes so much with what he's known for in the show. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more deck profile videos.